Hello, my name is Jenny Vafeiadou, and I will be presenting the paper Self-Tracking in Parkinson's Daily Efforts of Self-Management. In this paper, we focus on Parkinson's disease, the second most commonly occurring neurodegenerative disease and one of the most common illnesses in later life. Parkinson's is multidimensional and its presentation includes physical, cognitive, and emotional symptoms. Initially, we consider how self-tracking has been approached differently in the context of chronic disease. We particularly draw from the recent work which has recognized that self-tracking can be employed in diverse ways to serve a variety of goals, informing chronic disease self-management. This diversity stems from the broader complexities that derive from the everyday experience of self-management. In Parkinson's, the majority of self-tracking work aligns with a clinical lens and has tended to prioritize improvements in clinical assessments, and particularly that of motor symptoms. Thus, there is an increasing need to understand the lived efforts of people with Parkinson in relation to their self-tracking and everyday self-management. In this paper, we conceptualize self-tracking in line with sense-making applied to the context of self-tracking for chronic disease self-management. So, sense-making lens has been taken to move beyond what people track and why to how they understand their disease through the aid of self-tracking and how this affects the way they can engage in self-management. Past research has theorized how individuals collect and reflect on their personal data through different frameworks and models. In our work, we adopt the definition and framework of sense making developed by Mamikina and her co-authors. This definition accounts for the complexities that come with managing a chronic disease while emphasizing the cognitive process underpinning disease management. The sense-making framework is built on the case of diabetes, and the authors claim that this generalizable to other chronic diseases that require self-monitoring as part of the self-management. According to the framework, self-management activities are carried out either in a habitual or a sense-making mode. Both modes include the cycle of three interdependent activities: perception, inference, and action. Habitual self-management is the default state for people with a chronic disease. In contrast to the habitual mode, the sense-making mode is triggered when new information related to the disease is encountered, causing a disruption in understanding that requires a new explanation. Building on previous research, which has investigated self-tracking and sense-making in the context of other chronic diseases, our research contributes a new conceptualization of how Parkinson's disease is negotiated and self-managed, while opening up new opportunities to support the everyday needs of people with Parkinson's. Particularly, our study seeks to address these points through the three research questions. What information do people with Parkinson's self-track and why? What tools do people with Parkinson's use for self-tracking and how they make their tool choice? How do people with Parkinson's engage in sense-making of self-tracked information? And what self-tracking practices underpin sense-making? The context of this study is the Parkinson's movement, an online health community within the social network of Health Unlocked. We had a data corpus of 5,000 randomly selected posts. Since our aim was to identify discussion held by online members about their self-tracking in relation to performing self-management, we identified a set of keywords that would allow us to select appropriate events. For more details, please see our paper. Following the selection of events, we implemented three different types of analysis: for research question 1 and 2, word level analysis and inductive analysis, and to answer research question 3, we implemented deductive and inductive analysis. Moving to our findings revealed that PWP tracked a variety of information which were grouped into actually 4 categories based on their domain: treatment information, Parkinson's symptoms, generic health indicators, and lifestyle information. Tracking a combination of these diverse information types allows PWP to manage different aspects of living with the disease. Our analysis revealed that PWP did not have a single self-tracking tool, nor there was a standard set of preferred tools. When they decided to track information, PWP usually made use of tools they were already using and were embedded in their daily routine. The selection of a particular self-tracking tool and its continued use was influenced by three criteria: familiarity, access, and flexibility to fit with a specific goal. However, depending on the self-tracking tool used, sometimes the three criteria could not be satisfied at once. Self-tracking practices incorporating this tool differ in structure and time span. Structural differences encompass the frequency of tracking and the granularity of the information captured. The time span of self-tracking practice was shaped by the aim underpinning the desire to engage in self-tracking. For example, some PWP had self-tracking as an approach for maintaining consistent levels for self-management and was incorporated into a longitudinal daily routine. Self-tracking was also a time-bound activity used to address specific problems. According to PWP engaged in this kind of self-tracking, they experimented with treatment intervention in order to evaluate the improvement or deterioration of their symptoms. While our findings concurred with the sense-making framework for chronic disease, there were also features of Parkinson's that shaped the sense-making process in different ways. In particular, during the perception stage of sense-making, comorbidity, disease progression, and self-management best practices trigger particular gaps in understanding. PWP often employed self-tracking to disambiguate their circumstances by exploring what the cause and effect relationship of their symptoms might be. Since comorbidity is a common phenomenon in aging, it was difficult to assess if an observation was the implication of Parkinson's or of a comorbidity disease. The progressive nature of Parkinson's and its changing symptoms were reported across many of the post-analyzed. New gaps in understanding triggered the sense-making mode, as PWP often could not explain why new symptoms occurred and if they indicated disease progression. For some PWP, the knowledge of disease progression created a sense of vigilance, whereby routine actions in self-management were continuously questioned and revised. Rather than rely on the habitual mode until new information would trigger a gap, the sense-making mode was always active, and PWP were in constant search for new actions they could evaluate both in relation to their current symptom relief or in slowing their disease progression. Finally, contra contrasting to the sense-making framework, we found that Parkinson's self-tracking was sometimes awareness-oriented. It did not involve the action phase. To this end, PWP used self-tracking to understand how their disease manifested. Awareness gained through self-tracking also enabled PWP to maintain a sense of control over the disease and their life more broadly. We interpret our findings from a design lens, and we aim to identify design opportunities for digital self-tracking designed to support the everyday experience and live character of self-management. Our findings suggest that self-tracking technology designed to support sense-making for the purpose of self-management could support this goal by enabling the tracking of a more diverse set of phenomena. PWP expressed a lack of efficacy in having to define and to also measure qualitative dimensions of their disease across time. Thus, technology that may support the pre-configuration of information types and custom scales could provide a motivation and scaffold for the tracking process of qualitative aspects of the disease. PWP valued tools that were already familiar and available within everyday activities, in addition to tools that allowed for flexibility to define different time measurements and alarm. These three criteria, familiarity, access, and flexibility, can support the future design of self-tracking technology more broadly, while specifically suggesting the value of building upon already adopted portable technology. While some of the current self-tracking tools support existing self-management practices, such as medication adherence, they usually do not account for the need to experiment. Our findings additionally show the need for designers to further consider the ambiguity introduced between what constitutes a Parkinson's symptoms or side effect and what might be part of another disease. Findings also suggest that self-tracking could offer a potential strategy to disambiguate what specific elements of the disease or the treatment are interconnected. To this end, our study also showed that PWP tended to weave together the information they tracked in a self-reflective narrative, which enabled them to make sense of how the phenomena captured through self-tracking interacted. We thus suggested that self-tracking technologies designed to facilitate this narrative aspect may be able to facilitate self-discovery during the sense-making process. Thank you very much for your attention and looking forward to meeting you in the session.